never imagined I'd be the one cooking dinner in heels while she adjusted her tie in the mirror. I never thought I'd watch her walk out the door like the man of the house, while I stayed behind, hair curled, blouse buttoned, apron tied neatly. But it didn't start like that. It started with one offhand comment from my wife, Monica. And a pair of slippers. My name's Daniel Harper, 41. Used to work in insurance. Average height, thinning hair, practical clothes. The kind of man who blends into the background of every company photo. Monica, on the other hand, always had a presence. Not loud, not arrogant, but composed. Sharp. The kind of woman whose silence could stop a room. We'd been married for 12 years. Nothing unusual about her life until I got laid off. The day I came home with a box of desk belongings, she was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, dressed in her usual crisp navy blouse and slacks. She didn't flinch. "I'm sorry, Dan," she said softly. "I'll get something else," I mumbled, setting the box on the counter. "I'm already applying." She nodded. "I know." But that night, everything shifted. The next morning, she woke earlier than usual, put on one of my old ties with her blazer. I blinked at her from the couch. "What's with the tie?" She smirked. "Why not? They're going to look at me like I run the place. I may as well dress like it." I gave a small chuckle. "Looks good on you, honestly." She winked and left. That afternoon, she sent a message. "Try on those spa slippers I bought you. They'll help your feet. You're always complaining." I found them by the closet, soft, padded, kind of feminine. But I tried them on. They were absurdly comfortable. Too comfortable. I wore them the rest of the day. 2 days later, she brought home silk pajama pants for me. Light pink with tiny ivory drawstrings. "Try them," she said simply, handing them over. "Isn't this women's?" "They're pajamas, Dan." I tried them. I didn't want to take them off. I told myself it was temporary. Just until I got a new job. But that was the beginning. The beginning of the long, slow erosion of Daniel Harper, husband, man of the house. Monica started taking more control. She rearranged the closet. My old button-downs went into boxes for donations. New clothes appeared, soft pullovers, fitted pants, pastel socks, calming creams for my skin. She ordered a standing mirror. "You should really care more about how you present," she said one night, adjusting my collar. Then came the moisturizer, the facial, the nail polish clear at first, and the comment over breakfast. "You have delicate hands. They look nice if you let me shape them." I laughed it off. But she wasn't joking. That Sunday, she sat me down with a small glass bowl of warm water and a nail kit. She didn't ask. She just took my hand and began. Her touch was gentle, firm. I watched her eyes, focused. Something about it felt intimate, strange, but soothing. When she was done, she held up my hand and smiled. "There. Much better." And it was. God help me, it was. She didn't pressure. She led, step by step, with questions like, "Would you ever wear something silk under your work clothes? Have you ever tried one of my perfumes? Just one spray. If you had to pick a name, what feminine name do you think suits you?" I thought it was a game. She said it was a dynamic experiment. But looking back, that was when she stopped calling me Dan and started calling me Danny. Then came the job offer for her. A promotion. District director. More money than either of us had ever made. "But it'll mean long hours," she warned. "You okay taking care of more at home for a while?" Of course I was. What else was I doing? So I said yes. I said yes to staying home. Yes to folding her laundry. Yes to helping plan her wardrobe. Yes to borrowing one of her robes when mine was in the wash. And the more I said yes, the more she took the lead. Not just in finances. In everything. One night, I came down for dinner in a soft blue house dress she'd left folded on the bed. I didn't even question it anymore. She looked up, smiling. "That color flatters your neck." I blushed. Daniel Harper, blushed. She leaned back in her chair, sipping wine. "Danny," she said slowly, "how do you feel being the wife of this house?" And I froze. She didn't laugh. She didn't correct herself. She meant it. I looked at her, and the truth shocked even me. I didn't hate it. I wasn't offended. Somewhere, deep down, I wanted it. That night, I stood in front of the mirror after brushing my teeth. The dress still clung gently to my frame. The perfume she'd spritzed earlier still lingered on my skin. I stared at my reflection, not just at the clothes, or the softer tone in my face, or the way I stood a little differently now. I was staring at the absence of the old me, and I didn't feel panic. I felt peace. Could that be possible? Wasn't this supposed to be humiliating? I wasn't sure anymore. I touched the edge of the neckline. Delicate, warm, intimate, like something worn in a place of safety. And I whispered aloud, "Danny," just to hear how it sounded. It didn't sound wrong. It sounded like an echo I hadn't noticed until it answered back. The next morning, Monica handed me a to-do list. Not typed. Handwritten. Groceries. Dry cleaning. Call the plumber. Tidy the guest room. She kissed me on the cheek as she handed it over. Try to finish by 4. I'd like the house neat when I get home. I laughed. Yes, ma'am. She paused. Eyes on mine. That's not a joke, Danny. And she walked out the door, leaving me standing there with a list in one hand and butterflies in my stomach. By that weekend, things were clearer. She brought home a wig. Not cheap. Not synthetic. Chestnut brown, sleek, shoulder length.
She didn't hand it to me.
She just set it on my pillow and said, "Try it when you're ready." I waited until she was out, closed the bedroom door, unboxed it carefully, and stood in front of the mirror. My hands trembled as I adjusted the fit. When I looked up wig in place, simple light makeup, and a cotton blouse borrowed from her side of the closet, I didn't see a man, not even someone pretending. I saw someone I'd never given permission to exist before. And she was smiling back at me. Monica got home while I was still wearing it. I rushed to the bedroom, but she was faster. She opened the door gently and found me sitting on the edge of the bed, blushing, embarrassed. She didn't scold, didn't tease. She walked over, knelt in front of me, and took my hands. "Danny," she whispered, "you don't have to hide from me." I couldn't speak. My throat was tight. "I married Daniel," she said. "But I love Danny." That's when the tears came. Not from shame, but from relief. From then on, our roles weren't just blurred. They were reversed. I made breakfast in the mornings wearing one of her aprons. She left with coffee in a travel mug, leather briefcase slung over her shoulder, her slacks sharp-pressed and shoes shining. I cleaned. She led. I asked what time she'd be home. She asked if dinner would be ready. There were times I caught myself in the act folding her socks, dusting picture frames, and wondered, what happened to me? But the answer was never fear. It was always some quiet, strange, swelling thing. Something like belonging. A few days later, she introduced something new. The name tag. We were home alone. She held it up, light pink plastic, gold cursive lettering. "Hello, my name is Danny Harper, housewife." I stared at it. She clipped it gently to the front of my blouse, then stepped back, smiling like it was her final touch on a painting.
"Perfect," she said.
And I didn't argue, because it felt like the truth. One night over dinner, I finally asked her, "Why are you doing this? Why now?" She set her fork down. "Because I saw it in you before you saw it in yourself. And I wanted to give you the space to discover it without shame." I swallowed. What if I never go back to the old me? She reached across the table, cupped my cheek. "Then I'll love you as my wife. Fully. Proudly." She paused. "Because you're happier now than I've ever seen you." And I knew she was right. Even if the rest of the world would never understand,
she did.
And maybe for the first time, I did too. The first time I opened the door while dressed as Danny, my hands were shaking. It was the mailman. A harmless man named Greg, probably in his 60s. Always wore a smile and a baseball cap. I had on one of Monica's spare cardigans, a soft beige skirt, and slippers. My hair was styled, not the wig this time, but my real hair, slightly grown and pinned just so. When I opened the door, Greg paused. His smile didn't vanish, but it faltered just for a beat. Then he handed me the envelopes and said, "Afternoon, miss." And he walked away like nothing happened. But I stood there, holding the mail, heartbeat thudding. I wasn't sure if I wanted to cry or smile, because he hadn't questioned it.
He just saw me.
That night, Monica came home with a pair of modest heels 2-inch pumps in a warm, soft brown. "Time to feel what I feel," she said with a grin. I tried them. Wobbled.
Laughed.
Tried again. Within a week, I could walk laps around the living room without stumbling once. By the second week, I was wearing them while vacuuming. By the third, I forgot I was even wearing them. Monica would lean against the doorway, arms crossed, watching me twirl spaghetti or water the plants. "You're so natural now," she'd whisper. And every time, I'd feel that rush of warmth in my chest. Not from pride, but from being seen without pretending. The first real test came with Monica's office dinner. Her regional manager, Joan, was retiring. Spouses were invited. I didn't want to go. "I can't," I said, heart racing. "People will know." "Know what?" she asked gently. "That I'm this." She tilted her head. "This? You mean yourself?" But I couldn't breathe at the thought. "I'll be laughed at."
Judged.
Worse. She took my hands. "We'll leave if anyone says a word." "But they won't." "Why?" She smiled. "Because I'll be beside you. And when I look at you, they'll see what I see." That night, I wore a flowing wine-colored blouse, black slacks, and a silver chain Monica picked out. I styled my hair. Light makeup. Lip gloss. A spritz of citrus perfume. And we walked in together. At first, I felt every eye. I tried to disappear behind her. But Monica kept holding my hand, introducing me. "This is Danny, my partner." No flinch. No explanation. No apology. Just pride in her voice. Joan hugged me. "She's a keeper, Monica." And that was that. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't mocked. I was real. The next day, Monica left a single rose on my nightstand. With a note. "I've never been prouder of you than I was last night. You weren't my husband. You were just you. And I love you for it." I read it 5 times. Cried a little. Kept the rose pressed in a book on the shelf. Because that night, something inside me changed permanently. Monica started leaving earlier for work. And I stopped calling what I did unemployment. I began to think of myself as a housewife. Not playfully. Not sarcastically. But genuinely. My planner was filled with grocery lists, recipe testing, laundry rotations, and monthly budgeting. I started journaling. Skincare routines. Voice practice. And one night, without being told, I met Monica at the door with a warm towel, a glass of wine, and dinner already plated. She stared at me, then leaned down and kissed my forehead. "I don't know how I got so lucky," she whispered. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. It was a Sunday morning when Monica first asked, "Would you ever go full-time as Danny?" I paused. The question was a new knot in my head, but hearing it out loud made it real. I swallowed. "I already am. Around the house. Around you." She nodded, watching me. "But what about you?" Inside, I looked at my reflection in the hallway mirror. Soft knit sweater. Matching skirt. Painted nails. And I didn't feel like I was playing dress-up anymore. I didn't feel like I was impersonating. "I think," I said quietly, "this is who I was supposed to be all along." She smiled. "I know." That day, we packed up the rest of Daniel's clothes. Monica held the box while I folded shirts and trousers, one by one. There were no tears. Only closure. I kept one item, a tie she had worn the day after I lost my job. She found it in the closet and placed it in my hands. "I think this belongs to you now," she whispered. Weeks passed. I started taking hormone-free supplements. Skin softened. My face grew lighter. My voice naturally gentler. People at the local market began calling me ma'am. And I didn't correct them. My handwriting changed. So did my signature. Even my walk. Everything about me was shifting, not just the outside. It was like my soul was catching up with the body it had always been meant to live in. Then Monica suggested something bold. Let's update your ID. My breath caught. You mean legally? She nodded. If that's what you want. It felt like a cliff. But I wasn't afraid to jump anymore. Yes, I whispered. I do. The paperwork was slow. But every form I signed with Danny Harper felt like another brick laid in a foundation that had once been dust. I wore a smart burgundy dress to the DMV. Monica took my photo. I smiled. It wasn't fake. It wasn't forced. It was me. The final moment of part 1 came on a seemingly normal afternoon. Monica came home early. I was in the kitchen, humming, apron tied around my waist. She stepped behind me, wrapped her arms around me. Dinner smells amazing, sweetheart. I turned, cheeks flushed. Just trying a new casserole. She kissed me softly, then pulled a small box from her purse. I got you something. I opened it. Inside, a dainty silver ring.
Thin.
Elegant. With a tiny pink sapphire. For your other hand, she said. My voice trembled. You're proposing again? I'm affirming you, she said. My wife. I cried. Right there, holding the ring, in a kitchen that smelled like rosemary and melted cheese. Because I finally understood. I had become what I once only pretended to be. And she had become my everything. The day my old friend Mark showed up was the first real test. I hadn't seen him in over a year, not since before I lost my job, before Monica became the breadwinner, before I became Danny full-time. He'd been passing through town, apparently. Monica and I were enjoying a quiet Saturday when the doorbell rang. I answered it without thinking, wearing a flowy lilac blouse, light makeup, and jeans that fit me in ways Daniels never had. Hey, Mark said, then blinked.
Twice.
I stood there frozen. He was holding a six-pack. His eyes flicked up and down. Sorry, he said. I think I got the wrong place. No, you didn't, I said softly. Mark squinted. Wait, Dan. I nodded slowly. He stared. What the hell happened to you? We sat in the living room. Awkward silence thick between us. Monica watched from the kitchen, arms crossed. Mark leaned forward. You wearing makeup? Yes, I said calmly. You sound different too. I nodded again. And the clothes? Is this like a dare? A fetish? What's going on? I forced a breath.
No.
This is me. I go by Danny now. He stared, then chuckled a low, awkward sound. No offense, man, but this is nuts. I mean, I thought you'd gained weight or gone bald, not gone wife. That one hit harder than I expected. Monica stepped in. You're being rude, she said, her tone sharp. Mark held up his hands.
Sorry.
This is a shock. Dan, sorry. Danny, you were like the most boring guy I knew. And now you're what, a housewife? I swallowed hard. Yes. He blinked again. Does your dad know?
No.
Mark laughed. Good luck with that. That man nearly disowned you for switching careers, and now.
He shook his head.
Look, I don't care what you do, really. This is a lot. He stood. Congrats on whatever this is. And he walked out. Monica sat beside me. I didn't cry, but I could feel something collapsing inside me. You okay? She asked. I nodded, staring at the door. I just thought maybe it wouldn't matter to him. Monica touched my hand. The people who matter won't need time to adjust. They'll just accept. Then I guess Mark doesn't matter. No, she said more firmly. He doesn't. The next week, it happened again. Only this time, it wasn't a friend. It was my father. He'd called out of the blue. Said he was passing through. Asked if he could stop by. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no either. And the next afternoon, he was standing in our living room. He looked older than I remembered, slower, heavier in the shoulders. But his voice hadn't changed. Where's Monica? She's at work, I said. He looked around. The house was neat.
Clean.
Smelled like fresh bread. You've really embraced this domestic stuff, huh? I nodded. I'm happy, he scoffed. Happy? Dressed like this. I'm not dressing as anything. This is me. He shook his head. What happened to the man I raised? I met his eyes. She grew into someone stronger. After my father left, the silence hung in the house like fog. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't slammed the door. But his words had settled into the walls. What happened to the man I raised? I stood in the mirror that evening, brushing out my hair. My reflection didn't look like someone lost. She looked calm, stronger than before. But my heart still ached. Monica tried to distract me. She took me out shopping our first time together in public as a clearly flipped couple. She wore tailored slacks and leather boots, a button-down and a clean black watch. I wore a soft sweater dress, nude tights, and short heels. We walked into the mall holding hands. Heads turned. A few double takes. A whisper. And then a teen boy not more than 17 snickered loudly. "Nice skirt, bro." I stiffened. Monica didn't. She stepped in front of me, chin lifted. "Say that again," she said, voice steady. The boy blinked. His friend pulled him away. "Ignore her, man." But Monica didn't move until they disappeared into the crowd. Then she turned back to me, face calm. "You don't need to hide," she said. "Let them be uncomfortable." At dinner that night, I looked at her across the table. "You shouldn't have to defend me. I don't mind. But it's not fair." She smiled. "Fair?
No.
But love isn't about fair. It's about choice. And I choose you, every version of you." My chest tightened. Not from fear. From love. From the overwhelming truth of being fully seen. But the real storm came a week later when Monica's company invited both of us to a black tie gala. It was mandatory for her role. Spouses were expected. "No pressure," she said one morning, brushing her hair. "But I want you beside me." I hesitated. "Everyone will be there." She nodded. "I know. And if they stare? They'll stare at a strong woman walking in with her equally strong wife." I bit my lip. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's go." We spent the next 2 days prepping. She booked a salon appointment, helped me pick the gown and navy off-shoulder dress with a cinched waist and flowing train. It felt like slipping into another world. Like I wasn't just Danny the housewife. I was Danny the woman who stood beside her partner with pride. When I walked down the stairs, Monica's breath caught. "You look..."
She paused.
"Perfect." I blushed. "I look like your wife." She smiled. "That's because you are." The ballroom shimmered with crystal chandeliers, velvet drapes, and clinking glasses. Waiters in tuxedos moved silently between guests, balancing silver trays. Monica held my hand as we entered. The click of my heels echoed too loudly in my ears. My heart pounded beneath my padded bra. But Monica walked with calm certainty as though this was exactly where I belonged. We approached her colleagues. Introductions began. "This is Danny, my wife." There was a pause. Then polite smiles. A few raised brows. But no one turned away. I chatted with a few people awkwardly at first. But Monica's warmth paved the way. An older woman named Karen leaned in after a glass of wine. "You wear that dress beautifully, dear. I wish I could pull that neckline off." I blinked. She was serious. Another man, Robert, from HR, nodded respectfully when Monica introduced me. "Strong choice," he said. "Shows real confidence." At first, I didn't understand. Then I realized he meant her. Standing beside me. Defending me without a word. But not everyone was supportive. Near the middle of the evening, as Monica was pulled aside by a senior executive, I found myself alone by the drinks table. And that's when Richard Telford, her regional director, approached. Slick smile. Power suit. That kind of man. He leaned in slightly. "Must take a lot of guts to come here like this." I kept my chin up. "It's who I am." "Sure," he said, swirling his bourbon. "Though, I have to admit, I thought Monica married a man." That stung. But I didn't flinch. She did. Then she discovered something even better. He laughed. "You've got spirit." He sipped. "Hope she doesn't regret the trade." And he walked off. I told Monica later. She didn't react right away. But the next morning, I saw her typing an email, eyes hard, fingers sharp. "I don't want to hurt your career," I said. "You won't. But I don't want to be a burden." She stopped typing. "You're not."
She turned to me.
"You're my wife. You're my strength. And if anyone can't handle that." She deleted the email. "Then I'll find a better company." A few days later, I got an email of my own. From Richard's assistant. A quiet apology. Informal. Off the record. Apparently, Monica wasn't the only one unimpressed. A woman from marketing had overheard the conversation. Filed a complaint. Richard was being reassigned. Monica never gloated. She just poured me tea that night and said, "People like us, we don't have to fight to be seen. We just have to stand tall long enough for the world to catch up." I smiled. And in that moment, I felt taller than I ever had in my life. The letter arrived in a plain envelope. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper.
Typed.
Formal.
Cold.
"Daniel Harper, you are officially removed from the Harper family inheritance, effective immediately. This decision is final. Do not contact us again. No love." No name signed. Just a stamp from the family's legal counsel. I stared at it in silence. Monica found me minutes later, still holding the letter. I didn't cry. I just said, "They erased me." She read it slowly, then looked up, calm but burning.
"No, sweetheart."
"They erased someone who never really existed." For days after, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my childhood, the pressure, the need to prove I was strong, that I was a man. Every rule, every silence, every forced smile at family dinners now made sense in a terrible way. They hadn't loved me. They'd loved their idea of me. And now that I'd stepped outside that mold, I was disposable. Monica was quiet during those days. But one morning, she left a small frame on my nightstand. Inside, a photo of us from the gala. She had her arm around me, grinning. I had on that navy gown. Lipstick perfect. Smile radiant. The caption beneath the photo read, "This is who you are now. And you are loved." I touched the frame like it was a lifeline. Maybe it was. I began volunteering at a local women's shelter. It started small, folding donated clothes, handing out hygiene kits. But then the coordinator, Miriam, asked if I'd speak with someone struggling with identity. "She's scared," Miriam said. "Doesn't feel safe. She could use someone who understands." I hesitated. "I'm not qualified." Miriam smiled. "You're living it. That's all the qualification she needs." Her name was Ava, 16.
Trans. Her voice shook when she talked.
Her fingers tugged at the hem of her sleeves constantly. But when I said, "You're not alone," her eyes filled with tears. That conversation lasted 2 hours. By the end, she was smiling. And I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Purpose.
Real. Fierce.
Rooted. That night, Monica held me tightly and whispered, "You're not just becoming yourself. You're helping others find themselves too." And I realized, the woman I'd become wasn't small at all. She was powerful. She was needed. Miriam called me into her office one afternoon. I assumed it was about sorting supplies or planning the next event. Instead, she closed the door and smiled. "We'd like to offer you a position. Part-time for now. Community liaison." I blinked. "Me?" She nodded. "You've connected with so many of our girls. They trust you. They see themselves in you." "I'm not a therapist." "You're something better," she said. "You're proof." I sat back, stunned. Not long ago, I couldn't even say my name out loud. Now I was being offered a job to help others say theirs. When I told Monica that evening, she teared up immediately. "I am so proud of you," she whispered. We clinked glasses over dinner. And I couldn't stop smiling. Because for the first time, my life wasn't just a mirror of hers. I wasn't just following Monica's lead. I was becoming someone of my own. That weekend, Monica surprised me. We drove 2 hours north to a quiet lake retreat. She'd booked a private cabin. When we arrived, I noticed the champagne chilling, the rose petals scattered across the bed, the soft instrumental music playing through a Bluetooth speaker. I turned to her, confused. She smiled and held out a small white box. Inside, a silver locket. Oval. Delicate.
Engraved.
Danny. Loved. Chosen. I gasped. You've given me everything, she said softly. Now I want to give you something no one else ever did. She placed it around my neck, and I broke into tears in her arms. That night, under the stars, wrapped in a blanket and her arms, she whispered, I've been thinking. Dangerous, I teased. She nudged me. I want us to renew our vows. My breath caught. She continued, voice trembling now. But this time, I want to say them to you. The real you.
Danny.
Not Daniel. Her wife. Not her husband. I couldn't speak. I just kissed her and nodded against her shoulder. Back home, we began planning. It would be small, just us, a few friends from the shelter, Miriam, Karen from the gala, and no one from the family who cut me out. Monica found a beautiful blush pink dress online. I tried it on in the hallway mirror and gasped. This wasn't a costume. This wasn't a disguise. This was a wedding gown. And I had earned it. The sun filtered gently through the trees as we gathered in a quiet garden behind the lake chapel. Everything was simple, elegant. A white arch draped in sheer pink cloth. A path of rose petals. Soft instrumental music. I stood by a small mirror inside the dressing room, hands trembling slightly as I adjusted my blush pink gown. The lace sleeves framed my arms like a promise. The train pooled behind me like a new beginning. My heart thudded with both nerves and awe. This wasn't just symbolic. This was real. I was about to marry the woman I loved as her wife. Miriam knocked gently before stepping in. Ready? She asked. I nodded. She handed me a small bouquet of wildflowers. Monica's already out there. She looks like she's going to cry. I smiled. She's not the only one. The music shifted. The doors opened. Everyone stood. I stepped forward, slowly, every heel click on the stone path echoing through my bones. Monica stood beneath the arch in a crisp, white pantsuit. No tie. Just open elegance. And her face when she saw me melted. Eyes wide. Lips trembling. I reached her, breathless. She took both my hands. And just like that, we were the only two people in the world. Miriam officiated. We spoke our vows softly, facing each other. I loved you when I married you, Monica said, voice thick with emotion. But I love you more now because you are finally you. I could barely see through the tears. You saw me before I saw myself, I whispered. And you didn't flinch. You stood by me.
You believed in me.
I am who I am because you gave me the space to become her. We exchanged rings. She slipped hers on with steady fingers. When she placed mine slender, rose gold on my finger, I felt something click inside me. A door closing. And another, far bigger one opening. Applause. Laughter. A gentle breeze. We kissed.
Soft.
Long, deep. And the world faded. The reception was light champagne, laughter, soft music, and stories under fairy lights. Karen told a slightly inappropriate story about how she'd thought I was Monica's cousin when we met. Miriam raised a toast about courage. I held Monica's hand the entire time. But just as we cut the cake, someone called my name from across the courtyard. Daniel? I froze. Only a few people knew that name anymore. I turned. It was my sister. She hadn't aged the way I thought she would. My sister Natalie stood near the gate in a gray blazer, eyes sharp, lips tight. We hadn't spoken in over 2 years. Not since the day I told the family I was transitioning. She never called, never wrote, never replied.
Until now.
At my vow renewal. Uninvited. Monica's arm tensed around mine. You don't have to talk to her, she whispered. But I did. I stepped away from the small gathering and walked toward Natalie, my heels clicking on the stone. She stood stiffly. Up close, I could see the shadows beneath her eyes. The hesitancy just barely hidden. I almost turned around twice, she said. I almost asked you to leave. I replied quietly. She looked down. I guess I deserve that. Silence. Then, you look different. I am different. No, she corrected. You look whole. That stopped me. She swallowed. I didn't know how to reach you. Mom and Dad shut down everything. I noticed. I thought about writing, about coming to your apartment. I didn't know if you'd want me there. You're here now. I am. She glanced back toward the guests. Are they all like you?
No.
Just people who chose to love instead of judge. Another pause. Then she reached into her pocket and handed me a folded piece of paper. I hesitated. What is it? A letter from Mom. She wrote it months ago, before she passed. The world tipped slightly beneath me. Passed. Natalie nodded. Breast cancer. Stage 4. She kept it quiet. My knees weakened. She never told me. She said you had enough to carry. I unfolded the paper with shaking fingers. It was short.
Handwritten.
Faded ink.
Danny.
I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I hope you do. I'm sorry I didn't understand. I'm sorry I let your father silence me. You were always softer.
Kinder.
Braver than he could ever admit. I see you now. I hope you can forgive me.
Love. Mom.
I pressed the paper to my chest. Monica was suddenly beside me, holding me tight. Later that evening, after most of the guests had gone, Natalie stayed behind. She helped clear plates. She asked questions. She listened when I told her about the shelter, about Ava, about who I had become. I wish Mom could have seen this version of you, she said. I smiled. Maybe she did. Just too late. Natalie hugged me before she left. It was awkward.
Tight.
Sincere. As she pulled away, she said, "For what it's worth, I'm glad I came." And for the first time in years, I felt like maybe I hadn't lost everything after all. A week after the vow renewal, I got a call from Miriam at the shelter. She sounded breathless. "Danny, are you sitting down?" "I can be," I said cautiously. "One of the girls you helped? Ava? Her mom wrote about your session on a parenting forum." I blinked. Okay. It went viral. Over 500,000 views. My stomach flipped. What kind of viral? "She mentioned you by name. And a local reporter wants to interview you. On camera." Silence. Then, my voice small, uncertain. "Me? On TV?" Miriam chuckled. "You've become a quiet legend, Danny. People need to see your face." When I told Monica, she paused mid-sip of tea, then slowly lowered her mug. "I want to support you," she said carefully. "But are you ready for that kind of attention?" I looked down at my hands. Nails painted. Ring glinting under the kitchen light. "I don't know. Because once you go public," she said, "there's no going back." I nodded. She was right. No wig. No hiding. Not even the safety of a wedding dress or a cozy shelter office.
Just me.
The next day, I stood in front of our hallway mirror. I wore a soft green blouse. Light makeup. Hair pinned gently. And I stared at myself, not searching for flaws, but trying to see what others would see. Was I ready? Would I ever feel ready? Then Monica stepped beside me, her reflection tall and steady in a clean white shirt and slacks. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. I looked at myself, once more, and shook my head. "I think I do." The interview took place at the shelter. Simple. Natural light. No dramatics. The reporter was a young woman named Leah, who asked with curiosity, not judgment. "What's the hardest part about becoming who you are?" she asked. I took a long breath, grieving who I thought I was supposed to be, and accepting that who I am now isn't a failure, it's a victory. Her smile was soft. "And what's the best part?" I looked toward the hallway where Monica stood, just out of frame, smiling back at me, being loved exactly as I am. The piece aired 2 nights later. Monica and I sat on the couch, fingers entwined, as my face appeared on screen. The reaction was immediate. Texts, emails, messages from strangers. Some were cruel, but most were grateful. I showed this to my son. My sister cried watching it. I didn't know there was someone like me until now. 2 days after the interview aired, I received an email. Subject: National LGBTQ Plus Empowerment Panel Keynote Invite. At first, I thought it was spam. But then I saw the signature: Elena Ortiz, executive director of a foundation I'd admired from afar for years. She'd seen the interview.
She wanted me to speak.
Not just on a panel. As the keynote speaker. I stared at the screen, numb.
Me?
I was just
Danny.
a late-blooming housewife with shaky hands and too many doubts. But the email was clear. Your story is real.
Brave.
You're the woman people like us needed to see growing up. Please consider. I forwarded it to Monica. Her reply was instant.
Wow.
Proud of you, my love. But later that night, when we sat together on the porch, her tone shifted. Are you sure this is what you want? I hesitated. I don't know yet. She nodded slowly. I'll support whatever you decide. But I just want to make sure this doesn't become something that consumes you. I understood what she meant. She liked our quiet life. The shelter. The calm. The intimacy of a world we controlled. But the world was knocking now. Louder. I thought of Ava. I thought of the letters I'd received. I thought of the girl who once stood trembling in the mirror, afraid to breathe in her own skin. If I could be her voice, did I have the right to say no? I asked Monica directly the next morning. If I say yes, will it scare you? She looked at me across the breakfast table, then reached for my hand. It won't scare me, she said, but it will challenge me, because I'll have to learn how to share you with the world. Tears welled in my eyes. I don't want to lose you. You won't, she whispered. But I need you to be honest with yourself. Is this about them? Or is this finally about you? That night, I opened my laptop. I wrote the foundation back. Short and simple. I would be honored to speak. With gratitude, Danny Harper. Preparing the speech was like peeling open old wounds with a steady hand. Every paragraph brought a new memory to the surface. The first time I looked in a mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. The shame of hiding my bras under the bed. The thrill of walking through the house in heels when I thought no one was home. And then, Monica. And how, somehow, her love had been both a mirror and a map. I rehearsed the speech daily in the study, pacing back and forth while Monica sat quietly on the couch. At first, she smiled, even clapped. But by the third day, I could feel the change. She was quieter.
Distant.
Her eyes drifted away more often. Finally, I stopped mid-sentence and asked, Are you okay? She paused. Then, I don't know who I am in this version of your story. Her words struck deep. What do you mean? I mean, I know I helped you become this. But now you're flying so high, and I'm just standing on the ground. I sat beside her. You're not just standing there. You lifted me. Everything I'm doing is because of your strength. But it used to be just us, she whispered. Now it's interviews, strangers in our inbox, people filming you on the street. I didn't ask for all this, I said gently. I know, she said. But now that it's here, I'm scared we're changing. That night, we didn't sleep in the same bed. Not because we were angry, because we didn't know what words to say to each other anymore. I lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling, hearing the faint hum of the fridge and the ache of silence. Had I gone too far? Was my becoming costing me the one person who made me want to become? The next morning, Monica left early. No note, just a text. Need space today. Please use it to decide who this story belongs to. It hit like a slap, because I realized she wasn't asking me to quit. She was asking if I remembered why I started. The hotel ballroom was massive rows of chairs filled with activists, allies, journalists, and cameras. I stood backstage, palms sweating. A small mic was clipped to my collar. The speech was printed and folded in my hand, but I knew it by heart now. Still, I kept looking at the empty front row seat with a tiny reservation card. Monica Harper. It stayed empty. Until, just minutes before the program began, she walked in. She didn't wave. But she saw me. And sat down. The lights dimmed. My name echoed from the stage. I walked out to polite applause. I stood at the podium, heart in my throat, and began. I was born as someone I never fully met. For years, I lived inside a name that didn't belong to me. I was the husband, the man, the shadow of an expectation. And then one day, someone I loved asked me a question. What if you could just be you? And I didn't know what that meant until I saw her smile at me when I wore a dress for the first time. Not as a joke, not in hiding, but because I finally felt like I belonged in my own body. That woman is here today. And she didn't just love me through my change. She invited it. She celebrated it. She married me again for who I really am. I'm not here to be famous or inspirational. I'm here to tell you that you are allowed to change. That being loved doesn't mean staying the same. That becoming who you are isn't a betrayal. It's the most honest thing you can do. Silence. And then a standing ovation. But my eyes were only on one person. Monica stood too. And when I stepped off stage, she met me halfway, wrapped me in her arms, and whispered, "You found your voice." And I found mine. The foundation offered me a travel opportunity. Panels.
Talks.
Visibility. But I turned it down. Not forever.
Just for now.
Because home still mattered. And love quiet, grounded. Real wasn't a stage. It was breakfast. Blanket cuddles. Doing the dishes together. Weeks later, we returned to the shelter. Miriam smiled as we walked in holding hands. Ava was there too, smiling, taller, wearing a trans pride pin on her backpack. When she saw me, she ran over and hugged me tight. "You're famous," she grinned. I smiled back. "Only if you promise to be more famous than me one day." And in that moment I realized I hadn't become someone new. I'd finally let the real me breathe. That night, Monica found a letter on our doorstep. Unmarked envelope. She read it, then handed it to me with a strange look. I opened it slowly. Inside was one line, handwritten in ink I recognized too well. "You think this is over, Daniel? You're still my son, and I won't let this continue." My hands trembled. I looked at Monica, and she said calmly, "We're not running anymore." The letter haunted me for days. I kept it tucked away in the back of my journal, but every time I opened a page, it was as if those 12 words bled through everything else. "You think this is over, Daniel? You're still my son, and I won't let this continue." My father had been silent for years. No calls, no letters, just absence. But now, somehow, my very existence had disturbed his peace enough for him to act. Or threaten. Or warn. Monica was the first to act. She contacted a lawyer, one of her firm's best. "There's nothing legally he can do," the woman assured us after reviewing the note. "But if he escalates, you need to be prepared." Prepared for what? I asked. Defamation. Media leaks. Custody threats if children are ever involved. Anything he can twist to punish you publicly. My stomach turned. I hadn't realized how far back his control could reach. Monica changed our passwords. We added new locks to the doors. The shelter reinforced their visitor policy. Still, I jumped at every unknown number. And every shadow outside the window felt like a ghost. But something deeper worried me more. Not fear. Not even anger. But the quiet voice inside me whispering, "Will I ever stop being Daniel in someone else's eyes?" The keynote video had crossed 1 million views. Comments poured in, supportive, loving, empowering. But buried in them were also, "This is mental illness. Shame on the wife for enabling it. You're still a man in a dress." I stopped reading after the 3rd day. But the seed had been planted. My father didn't need to knock on our door. He could just keep whispering in the ears of the world. One night, Monica and I sat on the bed, backs against the wall, wine untouched. "I want to disappear again," I said. She looked at me. "You won't." "I mean it. Go back to just the shelter. No speeches. No press." "And who does that protect?" I stared ahead. "You? Or him?" The headline appeared without warning. "Wife of rising LGBTQ advocate speaks out exposing a fake feminine life." Below it, a grainy photo. Me at 24. Short hair.
Suit.
Wedding day smile. Stiff and uncomfortable. The article had quotes. From my father. From a cousin I hadn't seen in 10 years. All spinning the same narrative. This is a phase. He was a normal man once. She manipulated him, now he parades around in a costume. And worst of all, it included my dead name. Over. And over. The fallout was immediate. The shelter received angry emails. Miriam asked if I wanted to take a break. Even Monica's firm got calls. Suddenly, my identity was a weapon being used against everyone I loved. Monica wanted to fight. Press statements. Legal action. I just wanted to curl into a ball and vanish. But the story spread. And the more silent I remained, the more true their words began to feel. I shut down my social media.
Closed my laptop.
Stopped answering interview requests. And I avoided the mirror for 3 full days. When Monica placed my favorite pink sweater on the bed one morning, I stared at it like it belonged to someone else. Wear it, she said softly. I can't.
Why?
Because he wouldn't have let me. Then wear it because he's wrong. That night, I finally cried. Ugly, shaking sobs that rocked my chest like thunder. I fell into Monica's arms and asked through tears, "Am I enough?" She didn't answer right away. She just held me, then finally whispered, "You're not just enough, Danny. You're real, and real can't be erased." The next day, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I opened a new post and began to type. To everyone who read that article. Yes, I used to be someone else. Yes, I wore suits. I smiled for cameras. I obeyed. But inside, I was drowning. The person you saw was not the person I was meant to be. I am Danny now. Not because I'm confused, but because I finally stopped pretending. And I hit post.